Hello everybody, it is I, Brian the Pirate. In today's video, I'm going to do like a semi-first impressions / review of the campaign and 0.3, the third edict. It's not going to be in the usual format I do. I'm probably just going to splurge words at you. Forgive me if I'm a little bit all over the place. I've done back-to-back streams pretty much, 13 to 14 hour streams, just really enjoying the league. But I've also been doing some voice acting stuff, so my brain is a little bit of a potato now. So I hope you'll forgive me if I'm just like word vomiting at you. But yeah, let's talk about the third edict. Now, before we begin, it's probably worth noting that I fell off Dawn of the Hunt relatively early into the league, 0.2 that is. And there's going to be some like quality of life things that were added throughout that league. My understanding is that they did a whole bunch of patches like week after week after week that just solved a lot of issues, some quality of life things, stuff like that. So that is also going to have somewhat of an impact of what I'm going to talk about today. But for now, let's just jump into the things I really like. So the campaign. The campaign, I've always been a fan of the campaign. I know people have had issues with like pacing and things like that. It wasn't too big an issue for me. I do appreciate the downscaling some of the zones and things like that, though. That has been huge. And then, of course, we've got the new act, Act 4, and the 3 interlude acts thereafter. So Act 4, I really like Act 4. I don't like the load screens. They're a bit much. I don't know if that's just a thing with this patch or if it's maybe the Texas servers getting completely bombarded with it being the free weekend. For those who don't know, at least I know it works this way in Path of Exile 1. Whilst you may log in to a specific server, all those servers eventually go through Texas. So maybe it's just getting hammered and that's why the load screens are a wee bit slow. I know it's impacting pretty much everyone. So that's a little bit annoying, but maybe it's just an optimization thing. Who knows? There's just something causing it, however. Aside from that, though, really enjoying the campaign. They very much took Boat League to the next level, I think. But the act is very beautiful. There's obviously these islands. They are all very distinct from each other, which I really enjoy. A lot of the quests were quite fun. I love, of course, the voice acting, the lore, and things like that. I've appreciated that very much. And it's very pretty. Everything's, even the dark, horrible, dingy places are all pretty in their own way, you know? One of my favorite things, however, is the boss fights. I love the boss fights in Act 4. They've all been fantastic. And then, of course, the boss fights in the interlude acts as well. I really enjoyed those. But there was just something about clearing out those bosses in Act 4 where I just had a really good time. I'm only going to show the one boss, which was the final boss technically of Act 4, but the Siren boss is really cool, and not just because she's got her wabs out. You know, it was just like a really fun boss fight. There's a lot of mechanics that I really enjoyed that just make Path of Exile 2 feel like a superior action RPG in comparison to others in the genre. Now, earlier I said that I liked how they compressed some of the zones in the earlier acts. I do feel like some of the zones in Act 4 were a little bit on the chonky side and can do with some of the fat being trimmed. The Trial of the Ancestors was a little bit of a slog. Like the Trial of the Ancestors obviously hasn't been added to the game yet, but there's like this prerequisite beforehand. I ended up sprinting through most of it. I couldn't be bothered to kill most of the monsters. I was a level or two above the zone level anyway, so I was just like, screw it, I'll just run through. But it felt a little bit weird because in Act 2, the prerequisite is kill a boss. And then in Act 3, the prerequisite is find it, technically, and then kill a boss because you'll get the inscription from it. And then for the Act 4 Trial of the Ancestors, it's run through 10,000 miles of corridors of spawning ancient Karui dudes trying to murder you, and you'll get 5 res for each resistance along the way, unless you miss one and you might have to run back, which is what happened to me. And it was just a little bit like, huh? Just give me the monkey. Let me fight the monkey, which I did. I've heard some people have been struggling on that one. I nearly got caught out, but I managed to one-shot it. That was cool. It was a very cool fight as well. Overall, though, I think the campaign is, to summarize, one of the strongest campaigns in any action RPG, and it's just really fun. I never really found it to be a slog, but I know some people did. I personally really enjoy it. I look forward to making alternative characters and finding ways to optimize my route and get there quicker, and which islands to do first and things like that, and which interlude acts to do first and what order I should do the quests in. So speaking of the interlude acts, I think they are a fantastic way to get rid of Cruel, because Cruel was kind of annoying. I could usually blast through it relatively quickly, but it was a bit annoying to repeat the same 3 acts immediately after doing them. So I'm glad that they've replaced them with these temporary lore-based canon storylines that will just disappear. I think it's insane that they, like, obviously it's reusing assets and things like that, but it's crazy to me that they were just like, we're just going to make some content and then delete it kind of thing. In terms of story, that is. Obviously the assets get used later on in maps and presumably in future acts, perhaps, things like that. Once again, I really enjoyed the boss fights, the 3 like core bosses at the end, which then you find later in maps. Very fun. Some people found the time warping dude quite difficult. He killed me the first time because I got unexpectedly one-shot by his like sword swing of nope, I'm gonna call it, where it just cuts across half the screen. He actually got me from off screen when I died, and then on the second attempt I managed to get him. So that's the campaign stuff out of the way. Overall, like I said, really enjoyed it. Great time. Looking forward to seeing Act 5 and then eventually, of course, with Act 6. Perhaps we'll get them both at the same time, since Act 6 is a little bit on the Diddy side. Although they'll probably release it with 1.0, I imagine, just to have something fresh for when they release the game officially. Let's now talk about Abyss. So the League mechanic, I enjoy the first layer of it. I enjoy going into maps and being like, oh, there's lots of abyssal ridges, or whatever they're called, canyons, rifts, green cracks in the ground with monsters crawling out of them, with the pits. I think that's fantastic. I actually really enjoy it. It gets pretty crazy later on in maps for sure. It's a little bit intense on even the beefiest of PCs. I've got a 4080 Super, and my frame rate drops down to 30 after usually being at 100, so that can get a little bit on the hectic side. Apparently, if you change the sound channel, so in the settings, you can basically set how many channels are used for your sound. Apparently, if you drop that down to like medium or not the highest setting, that helps. So give that a go if you're someone who's experiencing like frame drops or lag spikes, things like that. One thing I think is a little bit overcooked is the abyssal depths, because you go into the abyssal depths, the monsters are harder than what would be on the surface. And then you come across some of the rares and they're just extraordinarily tanky, particularly the ones that you usually get at the end of the depths. On my very first abyssal depths, I actually got this in Act 4. I came across like one of the snake abyss monsters, and they were at the end, and they had an elemental resistance aura. They had regular fire resistance as their base resistance anyway. And they had a couple of other things, and they were quite literally unkillable, despite the fact I had fire penetration and exposure. With those both applied, you could see the icon was still gold for like the fire resistance. And I was just like, huh? How am I supposed to kill you? I couldn't kill them. I literally did no damage to them. Their energy shield would drop to about halfway and then just miraculously fill up, even if I was still doing damage to them. So my very first one, I actually had to abandon, so I had no idea what the rewards were supposed to be. On my second attempt, I came across a relatively easy one who I destroyed in a couple of seconds, thankfully, and saw that you got omens. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I like omens. And then pretty much every single Abyssal Depths monster rare thing at the end of the Abyssal Depths that I've come across has just been tanky AF. The one that I'm going to show you on screen now was ridiculous. So there's these 2 long boys, I'm going to call them, because I don't know what type of monster they are. And as you can see, they have Magma Barrier. They have the Soul Siphon, whatever the hell that's actually supposed to do. And then they heal each other as well as like reduce damage. And I'm just looking at these, trying to hurt them and not causing any damage again to them. And it felt like Nemesis had returned with a vengeance. I was very displeased about this. Eventually, I managed to kill them. What I did was actually baited one away, which was annoying because they run away from you. Like, this mob type seems to just run away and try and kite you all the time. So trying to bait one of those things that runs away from me, away from the other, a little bit on the annoying side. Eventually did it. Then eventually killed it after like spamming it for 2 minutes with grenades. Then I went and killed the other one because he was no longer being killed as well. And of course spammed that with grenades. I anticipate we're going to have a patch that nerfs the abyssal depths a little bit, because it's no one, since coming across the long boy twins, we'll call them, I haven't gone back into the abyssal depths because I just can't be bothered to spend 5 minutes killing a rare monster. So I'm waiting for the patch, which I expect is going to happen probably this week, where they'll be like, yeah, sorry about that. We made them all tanky AF, gave them ridiculous resistances, even after penetration and exposure. And yeah, so hopefully we can look forward to that in the next week or so. I also want to talk about Sprint. I like Sprint. I've seen most people, or at least most of the people I've seen, like Sprint. And then I've seen some people who are just vehemently hating on it. It's a skill issue. I'm sorry. It is. It really is. Yes, sure, there are occasionally times where something hits me from off screen, like a projectile or something like that, and I'm like, oh no, how dare you. Maybe there's some tweaking there, like they just only do a light stun as opposed to an immediate heavy stun, but otherwise it's a skill issue. If you die to it, it's because you just weren't quick enough releasing your finger off the damn spacebar, or if you've got, like me, the toggle on, casting another ability in time, or just letting go of W. I am really bad for not letting go of W when I'm sprinting around. I'm just like, oh, I'm sprinting directly towards the monster. What should I do? And I'll look at my keyboard and look back up at it and just be like, charge! And then I get knocked down. It happens occasionally. I've gotten mostly used to it. More often than not, I will cast an ability. Thankfully, I can just drop mortars, the mortar totem, the new skill, and that usually sorts me out. But occasionally, I just zoom straight into a monster and it's a little bit on the annoying side. But I recognize that's a me issue. Otherwise, Sprint has added so much mobility to the game. I'm actually a massive fan of it. It's made backtracking not feel like backtracking, at least as much. Navigating around the maps, going through the zones, using it in boss fights to navigate around mechanics and stuff like that. Absolutely perfect. Genuinely love it. Think it's a fantastic addition, and it hasn't had a negative impact on the style of combat that GGG are going with in Path of Exile 2. So good job, Jonathan, Mark, and team. Instant trade is the next thing I want to cover. Big fan. Very, very big fan. I've seen some people complain that there are folks not using it, and I don't think that's fair, because like you have to invest money into it and not everyone's in that position. So like, be chill, you know? Like, I'm glad I've actually made trades with people who weren't using the instant trade because I didn't have enough gold really early in the game, and I was like, oh, I can maybe get this rare item because I've got a couple of exalts, and I actually just trade it with them through the old system. But the instant trade system, fantastic. Big fan once again. It's so convenient. It's so nice as well when you log in the next day or in the morning or whatever, when your next play session, and then suddenly Ange has got the little golden handlebar and you're like, oh, it's time for goodies kind of thing, and you just click and you got loads of currency waiting for you. Really enjoying that. The convenience. Also, it's probably not talked about as much, but the fact that you can do it all in game, I think, is a huge boon. I've got 4 monitors in front of me right now. An ultra wide is one of them, and then 3 27-inch monitors on the side of it. And despite that, I still vastly prefer not having to open up a website on one of the other ones and just being able to do it in game and just being able to search it. The UI is nice. The vast majority of the features are there. The weighted sum, I use that quite a bit. I was using that for trading a couple of items yesterday. Having all that there, and then just being able to go secure item, teleport, grab, and then peruse the person's items whilst you're there. I ended up grabbing a relatively cheap item from someone, and I stuck around and I was like, oh, this is actually a really cool helmet. I grabbed it for like 1 exalt or something silly like that. So again, huge quality of life feature that I'm very, very happy that they've added. I hope we get to see more things added natively to the client, the game client. And it makes sense as well for multiple reasons that I don't think Jonathan had initially considered when he's spoken of third-party apps and not introducing stuff like that into the game originally. And that's when, one, you've got the convenience of not having to fuck around with another monitor. If you haven't got another monitor, that's, you know, even more difficult for you to do. But there's also the fact that when, and from a business standpoint specifically this is, but when you are not in the game, you leave the game temporarily, you alt tab to open up a web browser, that is giving you an opportunity to stop playing the game. You get distracted by your Facebook, your Twitter, or whatever, like social media or something else, or an email, etc. You've had your attention broken to look for an item, and then you end up stop playing the game. Obviously, to me, as a third-party individual, that doesn't matter if you stop playing the game. I don't bloody care. But it's something that they at GGG should probably care about. Like, once people are in your game, you want to keep them in the bloody game. You know what I mean? So that's another thing that I don't think they really considered. And I think they'll notice that there's probably going to be better retention during like play sessions now, and people will be in the game for longer. So hopefully, like I said, we'll see some more native stuff. Like, I'd love to be able to price check, even if it's just a case of being like pressing a button and it just populates the market search. That would be nice. Like, I don't need a separate price checking tool integrated, just literally like, oh, I found this item, Control Alt click J, whatever, and then suddenly it goes, puts it all into search, and then I click search and I can see all the comparable items as a result of that. And then I can be like, oh, well, that's what everyone else is listing it as, so I suppose I should list it as that as well, eh? And then, you know, jobs are good. I want to talk about crafting. Crafting is better. It's definitely better. There's a little bit of bloat. I feel like it's odd. I like the tiered currency, but I also feel like I shouldn't like it. You know what I mean? Like, the fact that there's 3 different types of augments and transmutes and exalts and chaos orbs and eagles, I can't remember, but like the fact that there's 3, like, one, I feel like they should probably just be different currency to make them stand out a bit more, but also I don't want there to be so much currency bloat like there is in Path of Exile 1. I like that we can craft with currency and do weird and wacky things with it, but I also don't want it to be overwhelming. I want it to just be chill, you know, be chill. But at the end of the day, it has added a little bit more determinism, which Path of Exile 2 was lacking a vast abundance of determinism when it came to the crafting, so I am glad that it's there. Of course, there's the new Abyss stuff as well. I think the Abyss stuff is cool, but it's also extraordinarily vague. Like, I ended up getting the Abyss Essence, and I was just like, what does that mean? What do you mean it guarantees a mark of the Abyss Lord bullshittery? What? Like, what does that mean, kind of thing? And you obviously, early in the league, you try and look it up to see what other people are doing, and unless you've got like a gargantuan community in your chat telling you what they've discovered, it's pretty difficult to find information about it. So I do wish there was a little bit more stuff in game that could just, you know, alleviate the uncertainty of what some of the stuff does. The affixes that you get when you get the choice of 3, some of them really suck. I don't know if it's just because of the build I'm playing, or if I just think they're generally a bit pants. In some cases, they seemed really low as well. I ended up feeling on a couple of occasions that I just wish I had an exalt instead of desecrating it. But for the most part, there's some really potent stuff out there as well. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the crafting once it goes core. Again, I would like to probably see a reduction in the amount of currencies. Like, there's obviously different currencies that go up to different levels or eye levels. So hopefully they can just, again, reduce the bloat there, make some of the lower end affixes a little less pants, and then it'll be in a really, really good spot. The last thing I want to cover is the bugs, the suboptimal conditions in which we've been playing. For the most part, the league launch has been pretty smooth. There wasn't any server issues. I mentioned that the load screens have been like kind of crazy long. When you go into an Abyss or when you go into a map where there's an abyss, it can really, really slow down the frame rate. There's been a couple of weird bugs where I'll be sprinting and then suddenly I'm on top of a wall and then I'm not on top of the wall and then I roll through another wall. Loads of weirdness there. I've managed to thankfully avoid client crashes, but I have seen other people experiencing them. Another one that I had a couple of times with Abyss was sometimes the abyssal trove wouldn't pop up out the ground. And I'd be looking and I'd be like, is there a monster left that I missed? And there would be absolutely no monster. And I did notice it was usually in like some of the tighter areas where there's loads of like terrain, let's say. I can only assume that maybe a monster had spawned in a place like under a hill or under the level or out behind a wall or something like that, where I could no longer see it and therefore couldn't kill it to get the trove to appear. That had happened a couple of times. Mostly during the campaign. I haven't had it happen in maps yet, so I don't know if it just got like hot fixed or if it's just a case of, again, the type of maps or layouts that I was doing in the campaign that meant that it happened more frequently. Otherwise, though, for the most part, relatively smooth. Hopefully, they'll sort out the optimization issues. As I said, try the sound channel thing. Apparently, that helps a wee bit as well. All in all, I'm enjoying myself. I'm looking forward to exploring my build. I'm making a mortar, gas grenade, forge hammer, resonating shield bro. I'm going to call him gas tank, just to quickly summarize. It's mortars throw gas grenades break armor via corrosion, and then I throw a hammer, and then I just do resonating shield on after doing ancestral war cry, and the hammer murders everything, and the gas clouds poison and break armor. And then resonating shield makes me immortal. Active block, actually. One more thing. Active block. Insane. So many people were like complaining, like, oh no, block is dead. It's capped at 50%. Just active block. Trust me, just active block. You are immortal. I have gone into boss fights and literally just hit my little shield with my mace, my one-handed mace on my little shield, and then the boss dies and I take no damage whatsoever. And I don't get heavy stunned because I have a semi-reasonable amount of stun threshold. It's like 1 or 2 nodes on their passive tree, and you pretty much never get heavy stunned. It's fantastic. It's also really strong in the Trial of Sekhmet because if you active block, it doesn't reduce your honor. You only lose your honor to stuff on the ground like burning ground, chilled ground. Does chilled ground do damage? I can't remember. Poison ground, stuff like that. So you literally just bang your shield walking through the entire thing and you don't lose any honor whatsoever. So try out active block. It's fantastic, particularly if you're a warrior or someone using resonating shield. But I digress. That's it. I'm going to call it there. I'm about to log in and play some more. Get hella deep into maps, properly explore the content, the bosses that have been added, the tweaks and things like that. Maybe I'll do another follow-up video if my opinions change or if they introduce anything new. But all in all, 0.3, GGG. You did good. I hope you're all enjoying it as well. If you haven't already, you should probably subscribe, maybe give the video a like. I also stream on twitch.tv/BrianThePirate. Thank you all very much for watching. Farewell. I remember you.